Welcome, dear viewers, to this unique literary journey. Today we will sail together through the pages of one of the greatest Arabic novels, described as the jewel of Sudanese literature and a bridge between East and West. It is Season of Migration to the North by the great Sudanese writer Tayeb Salih. This novel is not just a story. It is a long dialogue between two civilizations and an inner conflict lived by an entire generation after colonialism. A narrative that carries within its lines the ultimate questions: who are we? Where do we belong? And what does it mean to live between two worlds? About the author, Tayeb Salih was born in 1929 in northern Sudan, in a village on the banks of the Nile, where he stored in his memory images of simple nature and the kind faces of the people. He later lived part of his life in London, where he wrote most of his works, blending East and West, village and city, authenticity and alienation. His most famous novel, Season of Migration to the North, was published in 1966. Critics considered it a new breakthrough in Arabic literature, to the point where he was called the genius of the Arabic novel. The beginning. The narrator's return. The story begins with the return of the narrator, a young Sudanese man who studied in Europe for years, to his small village. There, on the banks of the Nile, he meets his family and neighbors, who welcome him warmly. Yet deep inside, the narrator feels that something has changed. His body has returned to the village, but his spirit is still tied to the atmosphere of the West. In this quiet rural setting, a mysterious man appears, Mustafa Said. Strange in his behavior, sparing with words, but with a sorrowful glint in his eyes that arouses everyone's curiosity, especially the narrator's. Who is this man? And why does he live here in this simple village, as if running from something immense? Encounter with mystery. As the days pass, the narrator's curiosity toward Mustafa Said grows. He sees in him a figure unlike anyone else in the village. One moonlit night by the Nile, Mustafa reveals his secret, and here the true story begins. He says, "I am not just a farmer. I am a man who lived many years in London. I studied, I loved, and I experienced life in ways no one could imagine." From here, Mustafa leads us into the journey of his past. London, the cold city. When Mustafa Said arrived in London, the city appeared to him as a forest of fog and stone. At first he felt estranged, but being quick-witted, he excelled in his studies until he became a brilliant professor of economics. Yet beneath this academic brilliance, he carried a dreadful inner conflict. He saw himself as a son of the East, a man from the colonies standing in the very capital of the empire that had plundered his homeland. Women and alienation. Mustafa carried a deep psychological wound, and he sought to express his conflict through his relationships with European women. They saw in him the image of the mysterious Oriental, and he exploited this image to seduce them. But in truth, he was seducing himself toward destruction. His relationships always ended in tragedy. Some women committed suicide because of him, as though his very presence was a fire that consumed them. But the most brutal relationship was with Jean Morris, a woman he loved and hated at the same time. She was the mirror that reflected his darkest self. And in a moment of madness, he killed her. The trial, a cry of the East in the heart of the West. In the courtroom, Mustafa Said stood to defend himself, but his defense was not only against a charge of murder, it was for an entire identity. He told the judges, "I am the product of colonialism. You created me. I am not just a man, I am the East itself standing before you." His words sounded like a revolutionary manifesto, but they did not save him. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Returned to Sudan, Mustafa emerged from prison broken, and so he returned to his homeland. There he chose to live a simple life in the village. He married Hosna bint Mahmoud and tried to bury his past among the fields and the Nile. But the past was too heavy to forget. The ghosts of London continued to haunt him. Drowning and disappearance. One day, Mustafa Said disappeared. It was said that he drowned in the Nile during a flood. But was his drowning an accident or a deliberate suicide? He left his house to the narrator, along with a room full of books and manuscripts, as though it were an inheritance from two worlds, The narrator faces the truth. After Mustafa's disappearance, the narrator finds himself confronted with the same questions. Who are we? Are we children of the Nile or of the West? He reads Mustafa's manuscripts and discovers that his story was not just the tragedy of one man, but of an entire generation torn between two civilizations. In a pivotal moment, the narrator himself nearly drowns in the Nile, but he screamed, "Help me! Save me!" a cry declaring that he chose life, that he would not surrender like Mustafa Said, but would resist drowning in the depths of a fractured identity. Symbols and meanings. The novel is rich with symbolism. The Nile, a symbol of life and death, homeland and roots. London, a symbol of alienation and colonialism. Mustafa Said, the embodiment of colonial wounds and the shattering of identity before the West. The narrator, the hope of balance, the desire to survive drowning. European women, an image of the West, a dangerous relationship between seduction and destruction. Literary and philosophical value. Season of Migration to the North is not only a novel about characters, but a philosophical text about the meaning of existence after colonialism. It asks, can we live between two cultures without being torn apart? Can we reconcile East and West, or is the fate to drown like Mustafa? Conclusion. Dear viewers, this concludes our journey with Tayeb Salih's Season of Migration to the North, an immortal novel that carries within it the struggle of identity and alienation, forcing us to ask endless questions. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss our upcoming journeys into the world of literature. Thank you for watching and see you soon.